page 1 of 741. A History of Money, Glyn Davies, 2002. From Ancient Times to the Present Day. Chapter 1. The Nature and Origins of Money and Barter. 1.1 The Importance of Money. Perhaps the most common claim with regard to the importance of money in our everyday life is the morally neutral if comically exaggerated claim that money makes the world go round. Equally exaggerated but showing the deeper insight is the biblical warning that the love of money is the root of all evil, neatly transformed by George Bernard Shaw into the fear that it is rather the lack of money which is the root of all evil. However, whether it is the love or conversely the lack of money which is potentially sinful, the purpose of the statement in either case is to underline the overwhelming personal and moral significance of money to society in a way that gives a broader and deeper insight into its importance than simply stressing its basically economic aspects, as when we say that money makes the world go round. Consequently, whether we are speaking of money in simple, so-called primitive communities or in much more advanced, complex and sophisticated societies, it is not enough merely to examine the narrow economic aspects of money in order to grasp its true meaning. To analyze the significance of money it must be broadly studied in the context of the particular society concerned. It is a matter for the heart as well as for the head, feelings or reasons, too. Money has always been associated in varying degrees of closeness with religion, partly interpreted in modern times as the psychology of habits and attitudes, hopes, fears and expectations. Thus the taboos which circumscribe spending in primitive societies are basically not unlike the stock market bears which similarly reduce expenditures through changing subjective assessments of values and incomes, so that the true interpretation of what money means to people requires the sympathetic understanding of the less obvious motivations as much as, if not more than, the narrow abstract calculations of the computer. To concentrate attention narrowly on a pound in your pocket is to devalue the all-pervading significance of money. Personal attitudes to money vary from the disdain of a small minority to the total preoccupation of a similarly small minority at the other extreme. The first group paradoxically includes a few of the very rich and of the very poor. Sectors of both are unconsciously united in belittling its significance, the rich man either because he delegates such mundane matters to his servants or because the fruits of compound interest exceed his appetite, however large; the poor man because he makes a virtue out of his dire necessity and learns to live as best he can with the very little money that comes his way, so that his practical realism makes his enforced self-denial appear almost saintly. He limits his ambition to his purse, present and future, so that his accepted way of life limits his demand for money rather than, as with most of us, the other way round. At the other extreme, preoccupation with money becomes an end in itself rather than the means of achieving other goals in life. Virtue and poverty, however, are not necessarily any more closely related than are riches and immorality. Thus Boswell quotes Samuel Johnson: "When I was a very poor fellow I was a great arguer for the advantages of poverty, but in a civilized society personal merit will not serve you so much as money will. Sir, you may make the experiment. Go into the street, and give one man a lecture on morality, and another a shilling, and see which will respect you most. Ceteris paribus, he who is rich in a civilized society, must be happier than he who is poor." Boswell 1791, 52-3. Johnson's common-sense approach to the human significance of money not only rings as true today as it did 2 centuries ago, but may be mirrored in the statements and actions of much earlier civilizations. The minority who find it possible to exhibit a Spartan disdain for money has always been exceptionally small and in modern times has declined to negligible proportions, since the very few people concerned are surrounded by the vast majority for whom money plays a role of growing importance. Even those who as individuals might choose to belittle money find themselves constrained at the very least to take into account the habits, views and attitudes of everyone else. In short, No free man can afford the luxury of ignoring money, a universal fact which explains why Spartan arrogance was achieved at the cost of an iron discipline that contrasted with the freedom of citizens of other states more liberal with money. This underlying principle of freedom of choice which is conferred on those with money became explicitly part of the strong foundations of classical economic theory in the 19th century, expounded most clearly in the works of Alfred Marshall, as the sovereignty of the consumer, a concept which despite all the qualifications which modify it today, nevertheless still exerts its considerable force through the mechanism of money. Page 3 of 741.